So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of the series we do called Your Take, Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week, based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week was actually pretty hectic, as we saw a big trade go down for a second week in a row, a contender fired their coach, and the trade deadline continues to approach, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. PrizePicks is a skill-based, real-money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2 to 6 players and guess if they will hit more or less than their projections, and if you get it right, you can win up to 25 times your original entry. Obviously, we're all basketball fans here, but PrizePicks has almost every sport you can think of available to choose from and play. To add to the fun, they also offer frequent bonuses, discounts, and weekly promotions, such as Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday, plus so many more specialty free spaces to watch for throughout the year, so you don't want to miss those. I personally will be playing Brandon Miller to score over 14.5 points, Pascal Siakam to grab over 5.5 rebounds, and Grayson Allen to make over 1.5 threes for tonight's slate of games. To sign up, go down to the link in the description and use promo code REFERENCE when you sign up to get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Diego, and he says that he still doesn't see the Miami Heat making any noise in the playoffs this year, even after the addition of Terry Rozier, and he says that the Pacers are actually more likely to do so after adding Pascal Siakam. This has been a very chaotic week in the NBA world, and one of the biggest contributors to it was obviously the aforementioned trade where the Heat acquired Terry Rozier for Kyle Lowry and a first-round pick. Lowry's at the point in his career where his best days are well behind him, and his effectiveness on the court was deteriorating quickly, so this is an obvious upgrade for the Heat side that was in desperate need of an offensive boost, as they were ranked in the bottom half of the league offensively. Rozier brings tremendous shot creation skills off the bench and is ranked amongst the league's best in terms of pick and roll efficiency, which are two things that over time will be very useful to this Miami Heat team. I'll start off by saying that out of all of the teams currently in the bottom half of the playoff bracket, the Heat are definitely the scariest team for one of the higher seeds to have to face in the first round. But does that mean that they now have enough to actually make another run similar to the one that they made last year? Last year's run came without Tyler Hero even being on the court, but his absence was able to help the team put together lineups that absolutely locked down on defense, while they also relied upon Jimmy Butler going Super Saiyan on countless occasions. Barring injury, Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier give them more scoring options for sure, but neither are very good defenders, and with the ball needing to be in Jimmy Butler's hands more in the postseason, the hit that they take to their perimeter defense may come at a cost. As I mentioned before, Rozier has been having a very good season on the ball in Charlotte, knocking down 40% of his threes off the dribble and running a very efficient pick and roll offense. But in more of an off-ball role, he's actually less effective, making just 29% of his threes in catch-and-shoot situations. Obviously, the team is still tinkering with this new group, finding the rotations that work and the ones that don't, but ultimately, I think either Hero or Rozier will have to sacrifice and settle into a sixth-man role off the bench, running with the second unit to maximize the talent of this team. Also, with all of that being said, I still absolutely favor the Heat over the Pacers making a deep run, because the Pacers, even with Pascal Siakam, are still a pretty bad defensive squad that rely way too heavily on transition play and fast-paced offense, and if there's one thing we know about postseason basketball, it's that the game tends to slow down a ton, and defensive stops become more important than ever. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Zach, and he says that the Bucks are a lock for a disappointing second-round exit now with Doc Rivers as their new head coach. The Bucks dominated headlines this week when they seemingly fired first-year head coach Adrian Griffin out of nowhere. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Griffin was a perfect coach or even a good coach so far, but the Bucks had a record of 30-13, sitting in second place in the Eastern Conference standings. So despite the growing pains, it was objectively shocking to oust a guy who was finding relative success as a rookie head coach. There had to have been something going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, because this seems pretty extreme from the outside looking in. But at the same time, the fact that former Trailblazers head coach Terry Stotts resigned from his position as an assistant coach of the Bucks before the season even started should have been a bigger red flag, because the reasoning was apparently because of an argument that happened between him and Griffin. Now the Bucks have brought in Doc Rivers to take over, and I'm sorry, but this is a hilarious move all things considered. The team fired former head coach Mike Budenholzer, who won a ring with the team because they needed someone with more fresh ideas that is also willing to adapt when things aren't working. And now in his place is Doc Rivers, with one of the worst resumes of the last decade as a leader of stacked rosters that have consistently come up short of expectations. Rivers is known for his stubbornness in the biggest moments, unwilling to adjust when things go south. He constantly blames everyone but himself for the shortcomings. He has more losses in elimination games than any other coach in history. His teams have blown more 3-1 leads in the playoffs than any other coach, and now it feels like a ticking time bomb in Milwaukee. Obviously, the Bucks roster is good enough to make a run regardless of who is in charge, but the playoffs tend to become a chess match of game plans and matchups, and they're now at a significant disadvantage in those situations with Doc Rivers calling the shots. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Marco, and he says that Damian Lillard didn't deserve to be named an All-Star this year. This week, we also got the big announcement of who is starting in the All-Star game, and Damian Lillard, for the first time in his career, was announced as a starter for the game. Obviously, Lillard has been one of the best point guards in the league for the better part of a decade, so this feels like a long time coming. But it also happens to come in the year where he's probably the least deserving of the nomination. Damian Lillard has still been very good this season, don't get me wrong, but it's one of his least efficient shooting seasons of his career, and there are a lot of other guards in the East playing out of their minds. The Knicks are one of the hottest teams in the league right now, and Jalen Brunson is scoring more points, dishing out about the same amount of assists, but is shooting the ball far more efficiently than Lillard, so he's the obvious snub that everyone is pointing to, because he should be more deserving than Lillard on paper. There's also Donovan Mitchell, who is scoring about 28 points per game, along with dishing out 6 assists per game, keeping the very injured Cavaliers afloat in the top 5 of the East standings, so he has a very strong case to be made over Lillard too. Then there's Trae Young, who has been one of the most productive guards in the entire NBA this year, scoring 27 points and dishing out 11 assists per game, but his team has been struggling, so that made it tough to vote him as a starter over Lillard. Then there's also Tyrese Maxey, who is scoring just as much and dishing out a similar amount of assists as Lillard, but is also shooting the ball better, and he's helping his Sixers team stay within a game of the Bucks in the standings. So to sum it up, I disagree with the original take saying that he shouldn't have been an All-Star at all, because he is still one of the best guards in the conference, but I don't think he should be starting over a few of those other guys who have just been objectively better this season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.